All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And this is the beginning, day one of our e-week for 2021. And today's topic is on public policy. For the agenda today, we're gonna start off with our usual with the mission statement. I have our speaker introduction, our presentation by our speaker, Ms. Rosalina Bray, Q&A, and some announcements. So our mission is to increase the number of culturally responsible Black engineers
who excel academically, succeed professionally,
and
positively impact the community.
It's always a struggle trying to do it on Zoom. So just get an introduction, Ms. Rosalina Bray. She's the director of the National Society Black Engineers NSBE Public Policy Special Interest Group, or SIG, Public Policy SIG. She's the owner of Bray Collaborative Group, a global performance management company. She is also the founder of Pipeline STEM EDU, a training program for young STEM professionals. Ms. Bray is considered one of the nation's foremost thought leaders in senior leadership, science, policy, technological innovation, and education reform. In addition, she's the leading voice for diversity and inclusion capacity building, pipeline development, and workforce development. Along with setting policy agendas, Ms. Bray works with decision makers and lawmakers to understand and develop plans to address science policy, health equity, and STEM innovations and STEM challenges. So let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Bray.
Well, thank you all for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm excited, one, because you all are here participating and it's Engineers Week. And so this is an opportunity not only for us to celebrate the work that you do in your environments, but also highlight your successes as STEM engineers. Recently, I was in a conversation about ethnocentricity. And so the individual was talking about how ethnocentricity is a form of ethics or a form of an individual's ethics that perhaps we need to lean away from, because it means that you are deciding that your group is more powerful, more important, or superior to another group. And so using that definition, I would say that people would think that ethnocentrism is a negative. However, I posed to him another question, which was, what if you being ethnocentric was celebrating your own background, your own culture, had nothing to do with other individuals? Are you expressing to another group that you are superior? Because in the African-American community within the United States, based upon our history, I think it's quite important that we share a ethnocentric view of who we are, who we were before we came to the Americas, who we were in the African diaspora, who we are now, as we share our cultural backgrounds and share our culture with the current society. How do we want to be remembered? How do we want to be experienced by others? What perceptions do we want them to have of us? If we don't have a good ethnocentric background, knowing who we are, whose we are, and what we are about as a community, then others won't respect us. Others won't understand why it's important for our culture to be preserved in some way. And they also will deny access. So I'm very excited that during Engineers Week, that NSBE groups around our society are doing activities, both volunteer and having conversations such as this, to support the work that we do as engineers, and also to share other opportunities and experiences with people who are learning more about the engineering field and also about how to become successful engineers. And we can save that conversation for later, and you guys can give me your input as well on your thoughts, and hopefully this will be some engagement throughout our discussion. So I'm going to start with an overview of the Public Policy SIG, and then I'm going to go into sharing with you some of the things that we've done in our SIG to support the NSBE mission, as well as some of the work of some of our members. And then we'll open up some engagement to find out a little bit more about your interest in policy, perhaps your thoughts on what's happening currently in the current political environment and also in the social environment happening in your area. I believe I can transfer remote.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it says currently waiting for you to control screen.
Okay, excellent. Very good. So the NSBE Public Policy SIG, our mission is to study, advise, and discuss and educate on policies related to the agenda of NSBE. So members within our society who are interested in public policy can be educated on how to present public policies, how to message it, also how to advocate for certain policies in their community and to serve as advocates for others. So we advise and train on that. In addition, we open these opportunities up for others in the community as well. So we have partners, we partner with school systems, companies, other groups that are doing the same work that we're doing to provide that same type of assistance. We also develop solutions to impact policy. So we explore some of the research that's being done on particular policies or legislation. We share that information with our society members, and also some of our participants in the Public Policy SIG may write for different groups that are our partners to help them on blogs or initiatives. And we also kind of keep a running sheet or a list of legislations and bills that are coming out, and we may present some position papers on those topics. So we have a whole group that's looking at research, and that's because I believe in the formation of this SIG by Dr. James Frazier and then others who were on the planning committee for it, like myself. We thought that this would be a great way to have a think tank through NSBE that can provide some information to our society's members. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we are not. The Public Policy SIG is not a lobbying body. So we don't contact congressional leaders asking them for their support on what we do. Instead, they come to us through a number of different means. They may reach out to NSBE headquarters. They may find individuals on our Public Policy SIG. We have a list of congressional staffers who they send us information about new bills that are coming out or legislation that they may want NSBE to sign on to or write a letter of support for. So we never have to lobby. One thing that we do is continuously share what our NSBE objectives are, and also give their staffers and others working on projects with them opportunities to engage with NSBE. So that's anyone in the federal government. So not just congressional leaders, but also, you know, heads of certain departments like the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy. They'll reach out and invite us to meetings or invite our executive director to meetings to discuss what's happening with some of the administration's roles. So this happens under, you know, any and all parties. So right now it's Biden and Kamala Harris. And so their offices are reaching out through the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy to ask people from web headquarters, can they sit in on discussions about some of the topics that they're going to be bringing forward to Congress. We are not a governing body. We're not a group that sets NSBE policy agenda. We may work with individuals to develop one. There used to be a government relations person within NSBE, but that position has been vacant for like 2 years now. So we kind of serve as maybe giving some insight to the executive director about certain things that are happening. But we don't want to be the group that tells NSBE what their policy agendas should be. Instead, what we do is help NSBE in all of its groups, and you guys know we got a bunch of them, the NEB, the AEB, you don't even know what all those acronyms are, but we help all those groups figure out what's on the top list for NSBE as it relates to policy that you guys all agree on. And that's very important, because if we're going to work as a collective organization and we find there's certain things that we don't agree on, then it should be left out of the policy. And I'm going to give you an example. This summer, when we were going through the call to justice, and some people thought we should be looking at how people, some people in our communities were victimized through criminalization. Then you had the issue with the police force using aggression in our communities, and it just went on and on. There were some individuals within our society who didn't agree with certain, ideas or ideologies presented by the majority group at NSBE. And so when you see those type of dissensions or fractions, you don't want to add that to your policy agenda. So you really want to make sure that you have some concerted consensus about what goes forward as a policy agenda. We're not a political group, and we're not a group that represents the official NSBE policy on anything, because we're just a special interest group. Now, if NSBE decided to create an arm of NSBE that was government relations and also advocacy, then they could set the policy agenda, and they could also be the official representatives for NSBE. So I'm going to stop right there and just ask you, do you have any questions so far, or any thoughts about anything that I've just shared?
I didn't know that. So like, I kind of actually thought that y'all did do some sort of like lobbying, not necessarily like money lobbying, like, but like kind of just like pitching some yeah, I did think y'all did do like lobbying as far as the government for interest on, STEM education for stuff. So the fact that y'all don't do that I was like, okay, all right, that's good information.
Thank you. We do other things that are a little bit more impressive than lobbying, though.
Gotcha.
What is the makeup of the policy SIG team?
So that's good. We can rush there, but I'm just going to share with you. We have project teams, and we have 5 that are active currently. We have a social justice and community engagement group, a technology and innovation team, a STEM education team, a government relations and FACA committee team, and a research team that are active right now. We also do some special projects with the Tuskegee group, Delaware State, Morgan State, the Links. So we call those all special projects because they're partnerships or they're related to some type of grant activity that we've signed on to. But our project teams all are small groups of people who are working on different projects.
Have you ever done anything to, I guess, affect school board decisions or something like that?
So the answer to that is yes, but generally it's in 2 ways. One, we will write a letter of support for a NSBE member who is actively engaged in local advocacy issue. Well, we'll be the person who supports their action. And then we will prepare them for any meetings and or presentations that they may give to those boards. So what we want to see is our members taking the education and advocacy part that we have trained them on, provide them with that backup support so that they can, have the weight of the society with them when they're sending something out, and also be coached if needed on certain processes when they're trying to work with their government, local or state representatives or community groups.
Okay.
We'll definitely prepare you and do some of the legwork for you so that not only are you bringing data, like for instance, we have a number of groups who have presented to their local school board or presented at a local committee meeting. And so because they got an agenda slot, on the agenda for that meeting, we wanted to make sure that they knew how to get the most impact. 1, lead with the facts and tell a story. And 2nd, tell a story. And then ask for what you want, right? So it's kind of, and we prepare them for that so that when they get up to give their talk or present their information, that is clear and concise, and whomever is making these final decisions and or reporting on this action or what was brought forward, know that it followed a sequence that most people are familiar with who work in this type, in those type of areas.
Okay, thanks.
So this is a busy slide, don't even worry about it. But what I wanted to show you was that science policy career paths can go in any direction. Sometimes when we talk about policy, people think legislation only what's happening in Congress, or only what may be happening at the state level. That's not true. When we talk about STEM policy, we're looking at legislation, advocacy, diplomacy issues that could be happening internationally. We're looking at a small set of things that happen politically, who's running for an office, help preparing you to run for an office, research gathering. That's a huge part. And so we have all these think tanks that are out there that do just research on policy and do conventions and conferences and seminars and create publications on it. And policy also deals with regulation. And then we get to a lot of the program management and coordination. So we find most of our members are coordinating programs in their community, or they want to deal with advocacy. And sometimes they tickle around with legislation, like, oh, they got a bill coming out, So our two strongest ones for our policy paths or interest for our NSBE members is program management, coordination, how do you do this within the community, and how do you make it work, and then advocacy. So we have a team. Now this is an old picture. I mean, I don't know where these people get this from. This is an old picture. Cecilia Wright Brown, Tracy, and then some of them are actively members of NSBE, but not necessarily on the Public Policy SIG right now. So our 2020 leadership, we got a lot of people. So we have our project team leads, and then we have the people that kind of help get all the work done when we're sending out messages. Right now, we got some vacancies for our membership chair, government relations, communications director, deputy technical director, and all of these roles are just being assumed by somebody else. But we do have those STEM project teams that I talked to you about. So on the NSBE site, it talks about the goals for the Public Policy SIG, and there are 9 currently, and they deal with engagement with our members and also the work that we're doing in STEM education, justice, as well as bringing visibility and awareness to the interest of NSBE's Public Policy SIG. So I'm going to stop right here. One of the questions was, what are we doing? So we have 32 partners and collaborators who are either from a think tank, a political organization, nonprofit organizations, or STEM organizations. And we work with them on legislation that may be coming out. All these groups are trying to work with Congress, but what we do is leverage each other's skill sets and each other's work to be able to promote things as a unit. So sometimes we're asked to read a letter that one of our partners, for instance, STEM Education, will be sending to a group of congressional leaders and edit what we want put into the letter. After everybody agrees on the letter, NSBE, do you want to sign off on this? Yes, we do. So we have an opportunity to influence through this way of working with a large coalition. In addition, we may be sent bills that are in progress for being written up from the congressional leaders themselves. So their staff sends us a copy and says, NSBE, this is what Congressman Eddie Benitez Johnson has out right now related to STEM education or STEM opportunities. Can you add language to this bill? When we're asked to add language, we definitely add language. There's not a bill that has come across dealing with STEM education, technology, or support for the military that we haven't put some language in. So I'm giving you 3 examples I'm sharing right now. You can look them all up on congress.gov. So our research team looks up what legislation is coming through the House. And so we can follow them to see what was passed, what was not passed. We can also pull up the language and check and see whether or not they put NSBE's edit in here. For instance, we wanted more grant funding to go towards K through 12 education to prepare students for careers in science and technology with an emphasis on inquiry. So we wrote that language in there to ensure that if they're gonna create any programs using government money, that science inquiry is what they do, that they have that and also make it applicable. We also wrote in some language about technical education and vocational schools to give more options to students, especially those who may not be going into college careers, but could have a career in another technical area. So giving them the options and having grant funding put there. So these are some of the bills that we recently put things out. We also did some stuff for the CARES Act, and there are a few things, you know, that are pending that have not hit the bill for vote, but are still in draft mode. So I'm going to pause there to ask, do you have any questions about how these legislations get passed or anything that I've already shared?
Not necessarily how they get passed, but I am wondering, so I see the listing here. Is there a specific place on the NSBE website that has all the bills that we've entered or have kind of put notes into or anything of that nature? Because what I'm wondering is there any way, like in certain regards, for us to also reach out to our Congress people when we have agreements? Like, do you guys do any like templates of letters that we may be able to send to our Congress people when we do want certain things that we see NSBE pushing from the NSBE SIG?
So right now on the current site and its new design, there is not a page for this information. We have been sharing it on the NSBE DC website because it gave us a location and a page where we can put multiple items. Currently, it's only available, you know, our checkoffs for all the things that we do is currently only available through a Google Doc. But we have informed NSBE that we want to be able to have our own site page that's designated for only the policy activities and not just the page where you get a summation of what we're doing and who we are. So they're working on that. But if you asked us to submit and share you our Google Doc where we follow what's happening and where we've added input, then we definitely can share that. And yes, we're working towards being able to share that more broadly. Now we have a toolkit on our acts of advocacy links pages that actually have downloads of you know, templates that you can use if you're writing a letter. But just remember, it very much so is going to be specific to the particular policy topic. And so it's not that helpful if you also don't have someone helping you with the language.
No, that makes complete sense.
But what we have done is sent out links to the language that you can share or links to the congressional leaders so that you can say, I'm supporting this particular XYZ. All of their websites actually have them as well. But we'll do a better job of that because it's only with us working together in tandem that we probably can, you know, push the issues more. And I agree, that's something we should definitely work on. So over the summer, NSBE put up a call to justice page, and that's where you can find many of the links that I'm describing, you know, how to get involved. Here's a toolkit, what you can do on the ground. We put together some materials for the call to justice page that was set up this summer to address some of the justice and equity issues that were happening in our community in 2020, well, around the country in 2020. And so you can find information about, you know, how to contact individuals, what do you need to say, here's a template. So there are toolkits on the call to justice page. Toolkits and resources. So I'm going to run through these next group of slides because I want to get to some conversation with you about issues that are happening in your local community and what approach to take. In addition, if any of you saw, if you were at work today and had your TV on, the hearing for the new Attorney General or the person who may become the new Attorney General, we can have a discussion about some of the thoughts that he said about the criminal justice system. So we put on a number of programs. Mostly, we do a lot of work in supporting our NSBE members who are doing work on the ground. oftentimes when we talk about policy, people are thinking, oh, what's happening on Capitol Hill? But where the work actually needs to happen and where the most change happens is at the local level and in your community. Once we have members who are working in their local community, we see the most traction on actions and improvements and impacts within our communities, especially when we are also engaged and attached to institutions, meaning churches, universities, and your local businesses. I mentioned we have project teams. And so our technology and innovation team, I talked about them. They're sharing and they're working on a number of initiatives that deal with engagement with reducing barriers to technology, barriers to access, looking at AI, what will that mean to our communities, and writing up position papers regarding that. So they also put on webinars for NSBE. Our STEM education group works with a lot of different partners, but they have an upcoming summit for deans of university faculty and members of color, faculty and deans of color, having a conversation about what policies are their institutions now putting in place around diversity and inclusion, and how well do they think that these will be, what the uptake will be and the implementation will be, and how will it affect their roles on these campuses. We have a social justice and community engagement group, and you hear a lot from them. They're doing everything across the country, just trying to look at legislation, trying to figure out where our communities need more support for justice issues related to not only education, but also in what's happening in the larger sphere of social justice issues as well, and also looking at disparities. So if you're interested in engaging with us, there's lots of ways. You can send an email directly to me and say, hey, I don't know about a project team, but I know a project I want to work on. Or if you're interested in having a more visible leadership role on the leadership team, we do have positions open. In fact, in March, we will be putting out information about how you can become the next public policy SIG director. So this is my last year. So I've been in this role for a very long time, and it's time to, get some new blood in, somebody else who wants to take the helm. And so there are opportunity to join the leadership team, and also an opening for a public policy SIG director. Now we do have quarterly meetings along with a lot of other meetings, but the quarterly meeting is going to be on March 12th, 2021, where we will talk about, positions that are available, and also engage with our members. We also have a recognition ceremony for people who have done some outstanding work throughout this past term, both internally and externally, NSBE members and people who are not NSBE members, acknowledging them for their support. So lastly, I'm just sharing some information about how to find us. There is a general mailbox at NSBE Policy at nsbe.org that all of the team can see. But if you want to contact me, it would be policydirector@nsbe.org. So that's all that I have to share with you guys. This is just groups of partners that we have. We have a lot of partners. And this is the way we're able to do the work with no budget. Basically, we come to our partners, talk to them about what our needs are and what kind of impact we want to make. And that's when they start, using the machinery when they're in their own organizations to kind of help support what we do. We would love to have a larger budget within the PEB, the Professional Executive Board, to be able to do our programs and activities. And we've been working on that for a while now. But not only do we get in-kind support from our own members, but we also get a lot of support from our partners. So I'm going to stop here, answer any questions you have about what I've talked about. Then we're going to open the conversation up to some larger issues, like what's happening on the ground in your local community, and then how you as engineering professionals need to be geared up in order to either become active in some initiatives or get support for what you think needs to happen in your community.
Hi, this is Triton. Thanks for presenting to us today.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so this one might spill into a little bit of both of the questions that you had just asked. But going back to the language, I'm currently spearheading the diversity and inclusion at my company, KLJ. And you talked a lot about the language, as I said, and I'm just wondering, one, where to get those resources, and two, how to explain. I guess for me, it seems like it's easy to understand the problems that are going on, but for someone who doesn't understand, how do you explain to them?
Oh, very good. So we presented to the NSBE professional group in Houston, the Houston Professionals Group, and also the NASA Good Art Group. We did present to them too. They were all doing diversity inclusion efforts and their role as engineering professionals through those groups. So their government groups, and they asked a similar question: what should we be asking for? What type of language should we share? Should we ask that they include in policies or communications about diversity and inclusion? All these groups had diversity inclusion officers or diversity inclusion committees, like groups of members of their organization that were asked to, kind of think about this as a group and come up with some strategies. And we just provided for them some language. So if you don't mind, if you send me your email address, I will just send to you the language that we shared with them. And then if you're involved in some of these initiatives, you can propose language once the communications strategy is put together by your company. So that's the kind of input I think that they would want to see from, their employees. What do you want to see? Now, what you're looking for is what we would consider uptake of the messaging. And you need to be able to evaluate that. You need to have people who are within your working group on this particular initiative who have their ears to the ground. How are people perceiving your messaging? Or you can do a survey and ask them about their input. Because oftentimes these diversity inclusion efforts, the communication isn't that great and you don't have the best communicators talking about it. So you want to lead with examples of where there was some situation that may not have been ethical or created some type of bias, discrimination, or something that people can reflect upon. And if they were in that same scenario, how would they feel? So you're creating empathy in your storytelling. So that's the first part. Once you've built that empathy in, now it's like, how can we decide how this won't happen again? Most of these companies are using like storyboards to explain this, trainings. You've probably been through a bunch of these trainings. And after you get that training, you need to find out, how did people perceive the messaging? Or was there anything in the messaging that they found offensive? So in the federal government, right before Trump left, he decided that he was going to end all training on implicit bias, and any training dealing with diversity was put on a hiatus or a halt, and the federal agencies weren't able to do that type of training until all of it was reviewed. And the main issue that people had was that they felt the trainings were saying that individuals who were not people of color, that they had, that there was white privilege, and that's the reason why they got to where they were and everyone else was excluded. I don't know whose training had that type of messaging in it, but that was what was offensive to that particular group. And so therefore, the training was considered to be bias in and of itself. And therefore, there was a stop on those types of training. So I just want you to know, if you're trying to make something happen, you may need to figure out how people are perceiving the message. I know that was a long way around, Trey, but I just wanted to make sure that you're geared up. So send me your email at Policy Director, and I'll send you some draft messaging that can go for your efforts.
Yeah, I'll probably good just to send that to the group, just because we're like where I'm working at. They recently just started a affinity groups and things like that that they just starting. So just having that, just so we can have something to come to the table as far as our stance as a community for my workplace location would be great as well.
Now, there is an effect that happens when you have a number of affinity groups, or when you decide that you're going to have a lot of diversity initiatives in your organization, and it's called tribing. So tribing is when, you know, people of a certain group, you know, you can say all of a particular religious group, all of a racial group, all of a whatever, they create programming only for themselves. And then they become all these little subgroups. You may say, okay, we've diversified, but now we have all these little subgroups within our organization, and we still don't have any unity, right? So it's called tribing. And the main issue with tribing is just what I said, that the other tribe people or other people from other tribes don't feel like they can, you know, participate in the programming of the tribes, right? So if you find that your organization is becoming very, very diverse, but it seems to be still separate, what's happening is an effect called the tribe effect.
Yep, thanks for that.
So I wanted to get some of your opinion, and that's about, you know, your voice as professionals in STEM fields. Are you able to, you know, not only share who you are, your thoughts on, you know, issues that are affecting your community, and where are you, I mean, on your job, do you feel comfortable doing it there? Or if you don't feel comfortable doing it there, are you actively engaged in certain initiatives in your community?
Hello, Rosalina. This is Tamar again. I know for me, when I was at Cummins, we had open sessions where we would talk to, you know, VPs and presidents and stuff like that, just to talk about these kind of things. And like for the most part, not necessarily like I felt pretty, you know, pretty open just to talk about whatever. I would say when I switched to my new job, just because of because Cummins is a lot more diverse than where I'm currently working at now. And just because of the military like, you know, structure it is like everything is kind of like hierarchical. So like for me, I don't necessarily feel comfortable. Then it's maybe just because I'm just brand new. So it's just like for me, I wouldn't say I would feel comfortable saying anything right now, even though that they just put out you know, like a base message, just trying to weed out some of the things that led to the, you know, having service members be a part of that insurrection and whatnot. So it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of a weird space for me.
You know, I caution sometimes on jobs doing things. You really need to get an idea of where things are going, who's in the leadership, how might it be perceived, and then you can proceed with caution, right, on what you do and how you do it. Always being aware that you are a mixed company and people's perceptions are their perceptions. What you're really trying to hope for is that you can create a fertile ground for growth of any organization that you see needs to grow. So you have to create that environment. Just having you in that space sets the seed, and you as a person who's engaged in the work and supporting the mission of your organization is the best example. And so when you have opportunities to intervene or have opportunities to share your thoughts, then do so. But I'm going to also say that our communities themselves need a lot of help from problem solvers like yourself. Oftentimes when people hear about engineers, they think, oh, these are all mathematicians, you know, they're doing all this complicated stuff. That may be true, but your voice and your presence also are powerful. So if you're showing up at local events, board meetings, you know, in your local community, or you're deciding, I think this, through this church organization, we should have the following. If you step up in those ways to lead, you're also bringing the community along and creating an opportunity for someone either a younger person or someone who has been through some challenges in different aspects of their own career, that they'll look for you for as an example. And right now we need more support from within our community than ever before. One, on helping with the messaging, like, you know, Trey is saying, what do I say here? You know, and I'll give you some words, you know, so that's the same thing that happens when we're on the ground trying to help our teachers, trying to help administrators. They're like, you know, Bray, can Public Policy SIG help us with some language that we can send to the superintendent, or can you share some information with us that might be helpful for, you know, our parents, because we want our kids to have, you know, access to things, and we don't have enough parental support. That's how deep it goes. It's kind of like grassroots trying to do the Herculean thing, moving people by being able to be the voice for change that they need so that they can, you know, live out the full potential of their lives. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments about what's happening? Want to share what you're doing?
Oh, as far as what was about to talk, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna ask. So obviously, one of the things you mentioned, which I 100% agree with, is that it starts at the really at the local level. Like the federal government can only do so much, right? So a lot of it leans back into the local government and what you can affect change from that standpoint. And so I'm wondering, like from the SIG standpoint, this is a question more than anything. Do you guys help with anything like grant writing or grant funding opportunities? Because we recently applied for one via our NSBE chapter, and just wondering, like from that aspect, do you guys offer any support?
We do offer support, and our support comes from connecting you with a couple of the organizations that we already have as our partners who help specifically with grant writing. We also work with the Social Justice Partners Group to help with people who are trying to write letters, like memos. You're trying to write a memo, so we connect you with them. So ourselves, like myself, I may review something, but I will send you to a partner that can help you with some long-term engagement, because it's part of what they do as well. Like we work with the Union of Concerned Scientists. They have toolkits, messages, packaging. They'll just assign someone on their team to help follow your initiative and be able to give you all the support that you need to see it come to fruition or to move the project along. So that's the work that we may do for you, depending upon how intense it is.
Yeah, I'll get into some of the things that the chapter is doing later as far as some of the announcements. But just anybody know how we're doing on time?
You are 3 minutes over time with me, because I think I was supposed to end at 7:45.
Okay. All right. Any last questions? We're going to take one more.
Yeah, could you repeat your email for us one more time?
Yes, sir. policydirector@nsbe.org. So if someone can put it in the chat for us, that'll be great. Look,
Yeah.
It ain't even on that one. Don't be like, you don't really want us to contact you, and I'm joking. Well, I greatly appreciate it. I'm greatly appreciative that you guys took the time to hear what we're doing, but I really want to engage with you. So if there are things that you need support for or would like more advising on, don't hesitate to send a message to NSBePolicy@nsbe.org or policydirector@nsbe.org, and we'll support and assist you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Rosalina.
Yep, thank you.
Really appreciate you. All right, just to get to there's a survey I put in the chat. If y'all could do that, I guess either after the meeting or during, some of the announcements that we go over, that would be great as well. As far as some of the announcements, just our e-week lineup. Tomorrow we're having a student present to us one of his projects. Wednesday, we're going to have our GBM with Alex Merritt. Thursday, we have our PDC, our professional development event, PDC with Nkosi. Friday is going to be one of our social events. And we're going to be playing Jeopardy and having a talk. So get ready for your studying up on some facts. Saturday, we're gonna go and support the robotics team there. Some of the robotics teams there, the MSP is gonna be having there. My group goes on at 10, and there's other groups that's gonna be presenting as well. So if you could help, show up to support those kids there, be really great. And we're gonna go to scholarships. Mike, if you want to talk more about these.
Yeah, sorry about that. So one of the initiatives that we started this year was the 5 for 5 initiative, as you all probably heard of before, where the goal was to raise 5 matching donations for Turning 5 as an NSBE chapter. And we were able to raise a substantial amount of funds, and all of it was to be given back in scholarships to kind of help address some of the inequities that we were just talking about from even just a societal standpoint, especially here in Minnesota with the education gap being so wide. And so we're in spirit of E-Week, we're launching a set of scholarships. Winners will be announced in May during our gala, not due until April 23rd. But if you guys know anybody that would be eligible or is in need of money in these times, I ask that you visit the NSBE TCPC website /scholarships to really learn more. Each of the scholarships are a different amount and have different specific requirements, obviously. But visit the website to learn more. And you can reach out to the treasurer at NSBETCPC.org if you have any questions.
Cool. Thanks for that, Mike. Also, check out our podcast. Recently we had an event, recently we had an episode with our chapter sponsor, the love engineer, Alex Merritt, who was also going to be hosting our GBM Wednesday. If you want to hear about more topics and, just things that you're curious about, let myself know at programs at nsbetcpc.org just to get some ideas. These are some of the proposed topics that I had. Next month is probably going to be on education. So if you want to hear about other topics, let me know so I can try to find folks to get on our podcast. But check our YouTube channel out and take a look at our podcast episodes. They're very interesting, and I think we have very good conversations. Another thing that we will like to get out is, just the robotics, volunteer for this particular season. The last day is this Saturday, but if you want to help coach a team for their next session, which I believe starts is either late March or early April, you can, email joy@precollegiate.initiative@nsbetcpc.org and sign up using the link below, which we can put in the chat if people want it after the meeting. But no experience needed. I've had some experience, but not necessarily really any experience coding. You don't really need any experience at all to help out. Most things, they just want you to be present and, help support the kids. Just kind of help support the kids through their journey. There's a program management training. Some of those dates are past, but if you are interested, these are the dates there. February one's kind of over, but you can sign up for the March through May ones. If you find something, they are during work hours, so if you have some time that you might want to take off to go do, or you can get your company to pay for it, that would be great. Also, the prices are up there. These are discounted prices as well. I think the online one originally was like maybe like 800 something, and the physical classroom one was a lot more. So if you're interested, I would take advantage of this opportunity now while you have the chance, and get these certifications. And elections are coming up. It's February soon. We're gonna have our April general body meeting regarding elections and just kind of what things are running. But so if you're interested in NSBE TCPC leadership, you can let us know. Hey, Ray, who do you want the emails to go to if people are interested in asking about, you know, positions and whatnot? If you want a central location. Ray, you on?
Yeah, I'm on. Sorry, what was the last thing I was said? I missed it.
I was saying, like, if people wanted to ask about positions and stuff, do you want it to go all to a specific location, and then do you know they get disseminated out that way? If they wanted to know about certain positions.
I would say the best source would be the current person that's in that position. But if you have general questions about elections, you can guide them to me, president at NSBETCPC.org, and I can answer general questions. Or if you have specific questions about a specific position, I can guide you to that person too.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ray. And, you know, stay updated. Check out our other sites that are, you know, here. You know, the website, especially for the scholarships, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, GroupMe, the email list. And if you want to get on the GroupMe or the distribution list, you should email our secretary, Kevin Stockard, at secretary@nsbetcpc.org. And also check out our YouTube channel. And everybody just have a great week. And, you know, hopefully you can see you all again for the rest of E-Week. So see y'all guys, see y'all everybody tomorrow. Anybody have any last questions or comments? I'll take that as a no. Again, thank you everybody for attending and have a great week.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation.